Hey there, friends. What's going on? So I want to answer a quick question that came in on my Patreon page. So the question specifically came in from Byron. So Byron asked, great lesson. He's talking about my Sittin on the Dock of the Bay lesson from Otis Redding. Really fun song to play. And in my playthrough for that song, I have this drum beat. Here's what it sounds like.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in.
And you can see I'm basically playing the entire song with this drum beat in the background. Now, I made that drum beat and I modeled it after what you hear in Otis Redding's recorded version, right? And the reason I made it is, number one, it gives me something to keep me on time. It's something just rhythmically, it's helpful to practice with. It's like a metronome. But unlike a metronome, it just sounds more interesting, and it sounds just like the Otis Redding version of the song. I sort of modeled the drum track after what I hear in his version. Now, I'll show you how I did it here, but let me say this. This is going to be a total beginner's guide as far as I'm not a drummer. I've never been a drummer. If you ask me the difference between a snare and a kick drum and a cymbal and a tom and a hi-hat and a rim shot and all those things, it's like I couldn't tell you. I'm kind of, I've stumbled my way through GarageBand enough to figure out how to do it, and that's what I'll share with you. So it's a total beginner's guide, right? And the short answer is I use the beat sequencer. So let me pull up GarageBand here and show you what I mean. So for context, this is what GarageBand looks like when I open it. It shows me a list of my recent projects here. And if you click on the plus button, that's going to create a new project or a new song. And it's going to bring up basically some sort of either live loops. I never use this. I don't know what those are. Or tracks. And when you think of tracks, think of just the different, the different layers of instruments you're adding on. So you might have bass, drums, guitar, and vocals. Those would all be tracks in your song. But in this one, all we're going to do is scroll on over and look for drums. And then you want to look for beat sequencer. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. And for context, this is my iPad again. I'm using my iPad Pro. It has a Magic Keyboard attached. And I'm only saying this because when you see the cursor, that's just me using my trackpad here. Imagine that's your finger, though. You don't need the keyboard to do this, okay? And another quick note about GarageBand is the Mac version of GarageBand is quite different than the iPad and iPhone version. So this won't apply to the Mac. This will only apply to your iPhone or your iPad. So check this out. So again, you want to select drums, as I said. So if we go back to this icon right here, under drums, select beat sequencer. And what it does is it pulls up this sort of like grid. And you see these different drum elements, I guess, of your kit over here. And how this works is if you were to click on one of these things, right, the second I click on it, it sort of turns on the beat sequencer. So the first thing you want to know is that down here, this is like the power button, so to speak, a bit of skeuomorphism in the design language. What that means is this is sort of mimicking the on button. If we had like a beat sequencer on our table, you turn it on and it's going to sort of go through the beats you've set up and play through them. So the quick example here, I'm going to leave everything as its default. And if I just was to turn on, say this is the kick, I guess, or the bass, I don't know what it's called, but this is like the boom, the thick, heavy one. If we did that on the 1 and the 3 count, and on the 2 and the 4 count, we added this drum right here, which is a snare. It's going to sound like, right? So immediately, we could theoretically start playing. Now, let's talk about what's happening here and how I made some of these beats. Just to show you around this thing, basically, these are the drum pieces. By clicking the different cells, we're sort of turning on the drum on that count, right? So you want to think of these as 16th notes, right? If you divided a 4-count measure into 16 pieces, these are 16th notes. So this is the first quarter note, the second quarter note, the third quarter note, the fourth quarter note, right? And I mean, you could even just do all basses and count that out, like, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is sort of the idea of the tempo here. Is you get 16 you get 16th notes over the course of each of the 4 beats. Now here's the deal. If you want to change the tempo, you want to use this gear up here. and you can change the key, the time signature. If you wanted a waltz or something, you could change that. The tempo is typically what I'm going to change the most. So say the song we're doing, say we know it's like 100 beats per minute, you would just change that to 100. You also can just tap to set the tempo, which is pretty cool. So I'm tapping here, you see it's like 120. Again, let's just go down. You can actually click and drag this. It doesn't matter, but this is how you set your tempo. And the cool thing is, whatever beat you set up, you can change the tempo while you're doing it, and it's gonna, the beat will still retain what it, what you've built. So say we want to just do a basic, kick drum on the 1 and the 3 count, and a snare on the 2 and the 4. Super simple, common sort of rock beat, right? And the cool thing is, down here, see Modern 808? This is the name of our kit, right? So what you can do is click that, and you're going to see a bunch of other kits you can change between. And the cool thing is, if we change our kit, the beats we've selected will stay the same. So you kind of explore, see what sounds good. One trick is you can kind of use your finger to sort of like click and drag, right? So you can kind of play around here, right? I'll turn it off. One thing I typically do is I'll tend to go to acoustic and kind of do, some more of these like rock drums, Anyway, so that's what this is. A common one I'll use is this closed, I think this is called a closed hi-hat. Okay, so do this on every 8th note. So right here, this is a, again, super simple. You could play along with that. Again, I don't really use this for just improv practice. I don't, I kind of pick a song, hear the drum beat in my head, and try to recreate it in here. That's typically what I've been doing. But this is how I make it. That's the short answer. And the simplest way to do this is you just make it as I've done here, and then you just hit this play button, and then you can play over it. You don't need to do any of this recording stuff up here. If you wanted to, you could click record, and what that's going to do is it's going to add this beat into this track. So this gets into the GarageBand idea of your sections and how many bars they are. So this is something I'm not really going to dive into too much in this tutorial. But say we just want a 4. Oh gosh, what did I do? Let's delete that. Say we just wanted a 4 beat section. I could just hit record. It's going to go. I guess 4 measures. But again, recording an actual track is different than just using this beat sequencer by itself. The beat sequencer by itself, I find, is totally more than enough, right? For practicing. Now, let me show you some other ways you could do this. The beat I've made here is not the only beat you could ever make. Obviously, there's a bunch more. Let me show you some other ones I've made. Right now, I'm working on Pretty Woman, for example. If you put on Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison, I'll do it here. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't take this down. Let me turn it on. So just the beginning of it. Very distinctive drum beat. Okay, so it's boom, 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 boom. It's quarter notes, 127 beats per minute. I figured out that tempo. And what I did here is sort of just put the bass, the snare, and then I guess the closed, what is it called? The closed hi-hat on the, all those on the 1, 2, 3, 4 count. But the closed hi-hat I did on the 8th note. So boom, boom. Here's what it sounds like. Close enough, right? So that's sort of what I'm doing there. Handy thing to do. Another one I've recently made is the Top Gun anthem. That's more like the... So I just mapped that out. And if you could play it, it would sound like... You get the idea, right? So that's that one. I just did a bunch of the kick drum and then the closed hi-hat. Is it closed hi-hat? Yeah, again. Now, here's another couple tricks I used here. One is this idea of down here you have these things you can control. Step, velocity, note repeat, chance, and loop. The ones I use, okay, so step on and off. That's going to be, let me make a new, pull up a new one here. This is the one I made earlier, right? Step on and off is basically turning these things on and off. So you could sort of add these things randomly and see how it sounds. Again, maybe that's good, but I'm not trying to create something random here. So step on and off is like the default. Now velocity is how hard the note is hit. So this is helpful if you want like say you want the closed hi-hat to be very like chill and quiet. So maybe you want it, let's just for comparison here, we'll do like have it quiet twice and loud twice, and it repeats that. So you can sort of see what's going on there. So velocity, again, is how hard the drumstick is hitting the drum. I use that in the Top Gun one, if you want to see here, because see how it's like I wanted each strike of each piece in the kit to get a little bit quieter every time. So like, again, you just click and drag and you can sort of decrease the volume of each individual hit. Now, note repeat, I think what that is so say, I guess, click and drag. So it's repeating this one a few times. I have I've never used that before. I'm not really my thing. Chance would be like, maybe we want this one to hit 40% of the time. So maybe next time it won't. Again, I think if you're doing fills and stuff, the idea is that you could maybe tweak the chance on certain notes. So that way the drum beat actually sounds a bit more dynamic every time you're using it. Loop start and end, I never use that, so I'm not even going to mess with it. I think that gets into like complex timing things. But yeah, those are the main ones I think you really want to just pay attention to. So one cool thing you can do down here is if you click on this icon, you can see a bunch of patterns. There's some factory ones that are just built in. I wouldn't use this myself, but it's cool these exist. You can kind of get an idea of what's possible, right? But check this out. Let me turn this off. If you go to custom, you can sort of save ones you've made. So with American Girl, I don't know the drum track of that song, but it sounds like this, the way I made it, right? Let's look at some other ones. This was A Pirate Looks at 40. Much more of a chill drum track. Minimum 1 hit of the kick and 1 hit of the snare. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right. So this would be good for finger picking, right? I didn't want too much. What's another one I have here? I think I have one for Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain.
Through the ages I'll remember blue eyes crying rain.
You can use this dice, it'll sort of randomize things. One thing that is helpful is this idea of swing. So swing refers to, do you want a sort of straight rhythm or do you want a bit of shuffle or swing? I haven't made a lesson on this yet, but the way I would describe this is if you take the eighth notes in what you're doing, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and this is sort of straight. This is no swing. But if you added swing, it would be again, no swing would be everything is equally spaced out. But here it is with swing. And you can hear that if you listen to this drum track. Whoops. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and here's what that would sound like with no swing. You can hear the difference probably. You can hear it in these shakers, right? If there's no swing, all these are equally distributed perfectly. But when you turn swing, when you do a swing, so I did a 8th note heavy, you can just sort of hear how they're a bit, all this one and this one and this one and this one happen a little bit later than you'd expect. So that's one thing you can use to sort of customize the feel. Playback mode, I don't know what that is. Length, 16. Okay, this is cool. 1632. So if you wanted a longer drumming track that was a bit more advanced, I guess you would use this kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into that now. But anyway, this is what I use. It's GarageBand Beat Sequencer. You can change all kinds of things. You can change the tempo, you can change your kit, you can change the sort of swing level you want on each of these hits. You can control the velocity. But this is what I've used, and on a bunch of the recent posts I've done, I have attached these as MP3s available to members on my Patreon page. So I'll put some links in the description to lessons I've made that have these drum tracks, and then the Patreon posts as well, where you can get them if you want to follow along, if you want to use them while you're practicing. And the final note I'll say is if you want to export them into like an MP3, you need to hit the record button and get it going up here, right? But you need to have it be a long section. So what I would do is basically use this up here, change the section to be like, I'd do like 128 or 100, whatever, like it doesn't really matter. Long enough where it just repeats forever. So I hit record. So whatever I recorded previously is up here. And when you're ready to export this, you would click on the new file icon, which doesn't make sense. And then here you would do a long tap and you would hit share. This user experience is not great. You click share and then you would hit song, and then I do high quality and I hit share. And then I decide, what to do from there. So anyway, that's how I make my drum tracks. I use the beat sequencer. You can use it on your iPhone or your iPad. Spend some time with it. And if you're like me, find a song that you want to imitate where it has a drum track and try to recreate it. Because I've done this enough times now. I mean, I've done it maybe just a dozen times. But now I feel confident enough where I can kind of quickly put together what I need. I just think it sounds cool. I have all kinds of plans to add these to my website, just embedded on each lesson page. So you're following along with one of my videos, you can see the jam track right there, play it, and then you can just sort of play along. I think that would be a really cool thing that I wish existed, and hopefully it's helpful for y'all when I eventually build it out. So right now though, the MP3s are what I got. You can find those on my Patreon page. The link is in the description of this video. Byron, I hope this helped. And I saw that Mike, you commented as well. Where's my mouse? Mike said, David, I watched your video again, looking at the walk-ups and walk-downs, and noticed that GarageBand comment. This is so great. On a really basic level, I'll now have a metronome that sounds realistic, a kick drum on the 1 and the 3, and a snare on 2 and the 4. So much better than any iPhone app that I have found. I never would have thought about using it for something like a metronome until I noticed it in your video. So, Mike, that makes me so happy because, again, I've made 400 plus videos, and only in the past few months have I started doing this. So it's been a recent discovery for me as well, but it makes me really happy to know that this is helpful. So hopefully this video is helpful as well. Again, this will work on your iPad or your iPhone. I'm pretty certain GarageBand is free. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. And this is what you can do. Yeah, so hope this is helpful, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, and bye-bye.